Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Missle's Found Fairmont Hardtop project. Now, when we left off last week, I had these XC guards loosely bolted to the car and the effect was satisfactory, but I've since learned that the eyebrows for the XC guards are not compatible with the XC bumper. So hopefully by the end of this video the cheapest eBay eyebrows I could find for an XB have arrived and I can stick those onto these guards and stumble forward with this project. But for the time being I've bought enough parts from suppliers here in Australia to put new headlights into these buckets. I'm missing a chrome ring for the left hand side which I have taken delivery of. I've got new reflectors for both the spotlights and a replacement lens for that busted spotlight. So the plan here is to strip all these lights and buckets off the front radiator support panel of this very yellow car and obviously give everything a good tidy up, clean those headlight buckets up, give them a blast of rust inhibitor and some paint, and then I'm going to paint all of this radiator support panel black because that's what I prefer. And in order for this car to look more like a car and less like a corpse the buzzards are starting to work over, it needs to have all its lights in the front end of it. It'll help encourage me to move along with this project if the car looks less like a corpse and more like a car. So that's the plan for this video, and I should get stuck into it because it's Friday night, it's almost 9 PM, and the sooner I get stuck into this, the sooner I have it all wrapped up in some presentable manner to make available to the public. So let's have at it. Maybe these came off a steel car? Super rusty. So it's been a long time since I've needed to worry about fitting an XB grille to a car, and this grille is in pretty average shape. These rings have been added in to a factory Falcon 500 grille and it is pretty cracked and damaged in a number of places, but for the purposes of throwing this car together loosely to get an idea of how it's going to look and what I'm going to need to grab in the future, it will do. Now, from what I can gather, it bolts in through there, through the top corners, here and here, and obviously it has the two mounts that extend from the radiator support panel. So hopefully that should be enough to anchor it in. I was pleased to note that the car actually came with an XB hood latch bracket, because for a moment there I thought maybe it had an XC one on it, which was not going to work, but that's definitely an XB hood latch, so that's good. I'll endeavour to get that off at some point and give that a tidy up too. So it's getting late and it's time for me to go to bed, pick this up in the morning. Right, it's the next day and festivities stopped last night when the captured nut on my radiator support panel refused to yield that bolt there, so now I'm going to cut it off with a grinder and continue to move forward. So if you're squeamish, look away! before I go painting my radiator support panel, I better dress all this stuff and get ready to paint too, so I can do it all at once. And while I'm doing all of that, letting the paint dry, I will start reassembling and cleaning up those spotlights. So all my buckets and brackets have been rust proofed and wire wheeled, and I have cleaned up the spotlight housings and pulled them apart. So the job now is to clean up the front of this car, mask off all the bits I don't want to be painted black, and then paint all of the stuff black. That black, that black, and while I wait for that to dry, I will start reassembling all my spotlights and headlight assemblies. Mainly the spotlights, because this looks like it's going to be pretty convoluted, but never mind. Okay, paint time. So the plan is to throw a coat of painted black over the buckets and bits and bobs, and then paint that radiator support panel black. Flip all that stuff back over, paint that black too. And hopefully that'll be that. It won't look too crappy. First layer of paint is down. Time for me to vacate the garage and have a cup of coffee. And I'll come back to this and throw down one more light coat over everything, and then it'll be time to put it all back together again. Okay, I've thrown down one more coat of paint onto the headlight assemblies and bits and bobs, and touched up the radiator support panel. And now it's time to put it all back together again. One headlight bucket assembled with new springs and retaining screws. So far so good. Alright, Bucket number 2 assembled. Alright, first spotlight assembly reassembled. This is using the old factory Hella lens with an aftermarket reflector in it. It's all gone back together without any dramas. I'm reusing the old gasket because I don't have any. And I've used a little bit of RTV to hold the gasket in place while I put it all back together again. So I'll pop that down there with the rest of them. And I'll put the other one together now. Yay! Okay, time to bung this all back together again. Okay, day 3, and I've found all the bits and bobs to attach the grille to the car. I did discover that the left side spotlight was so crooked that I had to re-drill the holes in the firewall to get it to fit into the headlight assembly, into the grille. So that grille is on, but I think I'm going to need to tweak the radiator support panel because it looks like it's been kicked back just a little bit, so I might need to experiment with some spacers and this and that. Either that, I'll take a giant hammer to that radiator support panel and see if I can move it out that way, but that's not a problem for this episode, that's a problem for later on. My main goal is to get the bumper and guards back on. Hopefully on day 4 I'll have eyebrows to put on the car, reassemble the guards, and wrap this video up. I guess you could call this day 4. The one eyebrow arrived yesterday, and as soon as I got home from work I bolted that eyebrow onto the XC guard to see if my proof of concept was going to work, and it looks like it is. With the XB eyebrow on, I should theoretically be able to fit the front bumper back on and fit the lower valance, which I will endeavour to clean up tomorrow morning and stick back on the car. But for the time being, that XB eyebrow has made all the difference. I did order 2, but only one's turned up. And the ad for that one said right hand eyebrow on eBay, and obviously I looked at the photos and went, that's a left hand eyebrow, but I need one of those, so I'll just get it. And the one that's not there said left-hand eyebrow with photos of a right-hand eyebrow, and I went, well, I need that too, and they were both the cheapest eyebrows I could find. But the eBay seller of that eyebrow that I need over there has not done anything about posting the item. I've messaged the guy twice, so I think that's going to be a bust, and I'm going to have to ask eBay for my money back and then go buy a twice as expensive one, or hold out to replace that guard with an XB guard that isn't as garbage as that guard, which is kind of where I'm leaning now, because I don't want to spend $120 on an eyebrow for a guard that is really shit. So I might just hold out for a complete right side guard to put onto the card that has the correct eyebrow right from the beginning. So that's starting to make more sense now than spending a fortune just to get an eyebrow. That one was $50. I totally live with that. So it's starting to look more complete. I should probably add that as I trawl through Facebook Marketplace, Gumtree, eBay, you find people selling all kinds of random items. You know, they're kind of battered, they're kind of second-hand. They're like leftovers from projects that have been put on a shelf, and then decades later they've blown the dust off them and gone, maybe I should sell this now, maybe it's worth some money. You often find someone selling a random thing that you might want for the right price. It's got 200 other completely discordant items on their eBay or the Gumtree or whatever, and it's an assorted mishmash of pipes, gauges, dashes, buttons, bumpers, switches of all different cars, and you think to yourself, are they cleaning house, or has somebody passed away and they're just sacking the garage for all the goodies they can of what's left over after years and years and years of hoarding things? I don't know, but I'll check any avenue to keep this project going forward, even if it means rifling through other people's stuff online to find what I need. Actually, I'm reminded of when I sold off all my coupe parts all those years ago. After I finished the build, I had 2 sets of door cards. At the start of the build, I had 2 lots of door handles, 2 lots of winders. I basically had an entire set of spare door cards and a spare gauge cluster that I never used. And I put it all on eBay 20 odd years ago. And people came from far and wide to rummage through my box of stuff to see if there's anything on there that I might not have mentioned. And that was 25 years ago. People were building these coupes, and they were trawling every avenue possible to find bits that they were after. And I thought to myself at the time, you poor suckers, I'm glad that's not me. And here I am in 2025 doing exactly that, 25 years too late. But, you know, we have a lot more avenues to explore now, so I will press on. So anyway, I'm going to get this eyebrow off this guard, and I'll pop it on tonight, and I may even try to get the bumper in and just see if it all is going to make sense. probably goes on before the bumper, doesn't it? Well, if we stand up here and we ignore the absence of the front valance with the indicators and lenses in it, it's looking pretty good! Wonky as fuck, but good. So, it has somewhat of a front end on it now. But I'm not quite ready to call it for the episode yet. I'm going to pull that bumper back off, hopefully fit the valance with the indicators installed, figure out some kind of way of getting that valance to attach to those guards, then I'll call it, because I do have a full set of front indicators to go into that valance there, so I should really get those into the valance and then put it all back together again. But probably not tonight, because it's getting late and it's hot, sweaty and gross in here and I've made a mess. Okay, it's the next day, and as an aside, it just occurs to me that the spring that locates into here, as far as I can tell, is different between the XB and the XC, so I've whipped the XC bonnet latch spring off so that I can shut the bonnet without any dramas. As I said, very wonky, but the bonnet will go down somewhat. Now the bumper is off, and I'm planning to give the bumper a good gurneying, and while it dries I will do the valance and the indicators. Now obviously the indicators are a mixed bag of broken bits and bobs that people have just left on their shelves for years, and this one here off eBay is no exception. Both the mounting screws are snapped on it. If I'm not mistaken, it looks kind of twisted as well, so I'm going to drill those out, and then I'm going to put my brand new $100 lens in, which is in a box around here somewhere, and see if it all makes sense, if I don't have to straighten it to help it work, but so far so good. Anyway, great news, my fresh new lens fits my busted out $35 indicator frame perfectly fine. So that's great. I just need to find some screws to fix the lens to the frame, and then I'll stick the frame onto the valance and then the valance onto the car. Alright, indicators are in. I've found some bolts that should hopefully hold all this together. Now let's crack on and get this valance installed. Okay, it appears that I'm going to have to chop these XC guards up even further in order to get this valance to work, because from what I can gather, the XB guards differ in that this line here is higher and it pretty much cuts all the way down there. All of this is surplus to my needs, so that's beyond the scope of today's video, so I'm just going to bang the bumper on and then call it, because that guard massaging is going to take probably a day's worth of work for me to sort out. I'm rapidly running out of day as it is. Okay, summary time for episode 3 of Missle Industries' Found Fairmont Hardtop, and I'd like to say mission success, because I've managed to repaint the front radiator support panel all in black. I've managed to rust treat and paint all of my headlight buckets and brackets, and I've replaced all the missing lights and fixed up all the bits and bobs for the headlight assembly and mounted the grille, because it was a bit of a mishmash of broken and damaged stuff, and it still is, but from over here I think it actually looks alright. The bumper's gone back on, but not the valance, but you can't really tell from when you're looking from this angle, so for the time being that will do. I'm going to need to chop these guards up, or just find some XB guards. So the plan going forward will be just to wait patiently for XB guards to materialise from somewhere that I can grab, and then when they show up I'll bolt the valance to the car, do whatever rust repairs those XB guards are inevitably going to need, and then move on to other things on this project. So that'll do for the time being. See you next time when I figure out what else I can attach to this car that I already have, and maybe spend a few bucks extra to get hold of the missing pieces. So stay tuned. So yellow. When I did my XB coupe in my 20s, this part had actually been cut out so somebody could put an XF dash pad and XF dash in its place. So I actually went to a wrecking yard in Salisbury and said to the guy with the 10-inch portable cutting machine, can you cut that out of an XB donor car that I found there? And he said, yes, no worries. So he chopped it out for me, and I welded a new one of these into my XB coupe where there was none. And as I look at this one, I think to myself, maybe I should just paint that satin black as well, because it's supposed to be black, not yellow. Could you imagine how badly that would reflect off the window? Oof.